Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
And good evening, friends. Welcome to this May 5, 2015 edition of Nightcast. Islamic State, IS, has said it was behind Sunday's attack in Texas at an event showcasing cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. The announcement was made via the group's Al Bayan radio news bulletin. It described the two assailants as soldiers of the Caliphate and warned of further attacks against the U.S. Aleem Mahbood reports.
Well, this is the center where those two gunmen pulled up. There was an event going on inside where prizes were being offered for cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. They opened fire, and very quickly they themselves were killed by security guards. They did injure one security guard, but the feeling is that it could have been far worse. This was an event that was emptying maybe 15 or 20 minutes later, and if there were many more people outside, there could have been many more casualties. But it is still something that has alarmed many here. We hear now that Islamic State has congratulated what it called two of its soldiers for carrying out the attack. But what do we know about their involvement or inspiration here? Well, we do know that this was an event that people across America didn't really know about, but it's something that certainly Islamic State did, it appears, because extremist groups, including Islamic State, had been talking on social media about this event in the days leading up to it. They had called for an attack on the event. We also know that one of the gunmen, Elton Simpson, it appears on social media, pledged allegiance to this group, Islamic State, ahead of the event as well. But we also know that the FBI had actually been following Elton Simpson since as far back as 2007. They were worried he was trying to join militant groups in Somalia. They even arrested him in 2010. There's a lot of pressure on them, on the authorities, as to why they didn't stop him before he carried out this attack in the first place. So the worry is not necessarily that Islamic State has a network where it has cells here in America and in other countries, but that it is inspiring, and that was the worry before. And that in itself is something that will concern authorities here, particularly with the reach that Islamic State has on social media.
Okay, thank you, Aleem Mahbood. And friends, we've got a story next that relates to, from the book of Revelations, which Jesus Christ described in plain language. Now, in the book of Revelation, it's depicted, this fourth seal is depicted as a pale horse with a rider whose name is Death, and alongside that pale horse and its rider named Death rides Hades, hell, the grave. So this is a horse of much death, and that death is predicted to come by, as Jesus Christ described it in plain language, primarily loimus, disease epidemics, pestilence, the plagues of Egypt. But he also said between the third seal and the fifth seal there would be seismic activity, seismic conditions, commotions in the air, gale force winds of all kinds, and commotions on the ground, such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, tidal waves, flooding, wildfires, etc. And he also said there'd be terrorcade, trouble, mobs, seditions, trouble. And of course, the first story relates in a way to that. Also, the red horse of war and rumors of war relates to that too. But on this subject of the next horse, related to seismus, hundreds of spectators have been gathering to watch surfers brave 15-foot swells at the Wedge, a break in Newport Beach, California, known for its powerful surf. But these waves are not standard for this area. They are the product of a major storm churning thousands of miles away off the coast of New Zealand. And it's some weather that we're going to be watching. The epic surf has been slamming beaches in Southern California since today's Tuesday, since Sunday, 2 days ago, and lifeguards have been busy watching over the surfers and boogie boarders who have flocked to the area. In Newport Beach, lifeguards reported 15-foot waves yesterday afternoon. Over the weekend, they rescued 17 people from the dangerous conditions. Let's give you a few more pictures from the weekend where the boarders were coming in droves. Government officials have issued a high surf advisory that will remain in effect until at least late evening tonight, Tuesday. The advisory issued by the National Weather Service warns that some waves may continue to reach 15 feet in height. It also warns of powerful rip currents, which could pull swimmers out to sea. They may be present. Those rip cords may be present. Over the weekend, powerful rip currents. Over the weekend, about 55,000 visitors visited Newport Beach, but those numbers dwindled yesterday. Still, officials have dispatched extra lifeguards to the beach because of the large waves. Lifeguards and meteorologists are warning those braving the surf about the possibility of so-called sneaker waves, large waves that can appear with little or no warning. And friends, last night we gave you a story that was in yesterday's news regarding Chinese culture. Tonight we have a story entitled Chinese Culture Through American Eyes.
As opulent as an emperor's robe, this is China seen through the lens of Western fashion. Avant-garde looks by some of the most renowned designers, Jean-Paul Gaultier, Ralph Lauren, John Galliano. The presentation brings the China of their imagination to life. The Met's collection of Chinese art features in each gallery, with very rare pieces from the Palace Museum in Beijing, not even seen in China, on display for the first time. And to provide a historical framework, the country's imperialist, nationalist, and communist identities are all represented throughout the collection.
The impact of China on the West dates right back to the Roman Empire. And so I wanted to give a sense of that influence, a sense of that impact throughout the exhibition. And I think also the complexity of that exchange and the fact that China was quite complicit in the sort of myth-making that in a way the Western imagination propagated.
The exhibit uses mood lighting, dramatic music, and even film clips to create a sense of fantasy around China. Instead of a political examination of Orientalism, this site instead seeks to celebrate the cultural exchanges between East and West.
Film clips are added throughout to also demonstrate how designers' perceptions are influenced by cinema.
Their first port of call when it comes to China is a filmic reference to the films of Chen Kaige, the films of Zhang Yimou, Wong Kar-wai, Ang Lee. And these are all directors who've had a big influence on how Western designers have shaped their imagination of China.
And what comes through in the end is the beauty of this cultural collaboration. Neda Tawfiq, BBC News, New York.
Okay, friends, so very interesting as we had that one story yesterday, and I played you a clip last night from how the founder of the end-time Church of God, Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong, went to China, met the little ambassadors, the little ambassadors of Shanghai, and brought them to the United States for the first time. And Mrs. Reagan, who had been over there before that, had told these little ambassadors of Shanghai that if they ever came to the United States, they had an open invitation to perform in the White House for Mrs. Ronald Reagan and her guest. And when Mr. Armstrong learned of that, that simply magnified his desire to help bring them to the United States. They made their first appearance in Pasadena, California, at the church's Ambassador College. And then from there, they performed in Washington, D.C. at the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center there, and then they had some more meetings with Mr. Armstrong's group in Pasadena and back to China. That was in 1984. And I told you last night, I played you one film clip from their performance in Pasadena, California at the Ambassador Auditorium. I told you tonight that I would try to play a little bit more of that. And for the rest of the program tonight, I've got some clips I have assembled, and we're going to roll to those and just play those till end of the program. We'll just do a half hour tonight, and I'll come back and sign off at that time and remind you now and at the end of the program that we'll be playing the entire hour and a half long special about the little ambassadors of Shanghai and their involvement with Mr. Armstrong. Some of the clips I've edited just to show you excerpts tonight will feature Mr. Armstrong and show you the camaraderie between the United States and these people of China, the little ambassadors of Shanghai and the other Chinese people that were involved with this, how much they had an admiration and a love and a very specialness. You'll see them call him their grandfather for God's end-time apostle, whose work, even though he's in the grave, his work is not yet finished. Let's go to this clip, and I think you'll get a little better idea of the person I'm talking about.
This dance is the story of a flock of wild geese flying south for the winter. We think of the graceful beauty of the birds as they soar through the air.
Friends, just to let you know what's on the screen now, I'm just cutting to some of their performances and how they explain some things. And I've just got miscellaneous excerpts throughout for the next 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes.
On the campus are beautiful homes that have been made into dormitories for the students.
Our American friends had arranged their reception so that we could meet some of the students of the college. We learned that some of the students were learning Chinese and hoped to travel to China. They wanted to try out the Chinese words on us.
The next day we had rested, we toured the campus. It was very clean and well kept. Our guide told us that this campus had won awards for being the most beautiful campus in North America. Many of the buildings on the campus are beautiful homes that have been made into dormitories for the students.
Our American friends had arranged their reception so that we could meet some of the students of the college. We learned that some of the students were learning Chinese and hoped to travel to China. They wanted to try out the Chinese words on us.
Apparently, in my throwing this together quickly before airtime tonight. So, here we go.
Mr. Herbert Armstrong, the president of the college and the foundation, came especially to meet us.
Now I wonder if I can make a toast to the continued good relationship and happiness between your country and ours, between China, People's Republic of China, and the United States of America.
你说我们为阿姆斯特朗先生的那个健康长寿，为各位先生女士们的健康干杯。
Mr. Armstrong was very kind to us. He adopted us as his Chinese grandchildren, so we called him our American grandpa. He invited us to visit his home. We gave him a gift from Shanghai.
Thank you. 谢谢你们。
The next day we visited Imperial School. It is a school that is run by Ambassador College for younger children. It was very interesting for us to see the American children at work in their classrooms.
In Washington were held in the Terrace Theater at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. This beautiful auditorium was opened in 1971. It was built in memory of the late President John F. Kennedy and is America's National Cultural Center. Behind the scenes, the children practiced a song that had been specially written for them by Warren Dyke, a young Canadian composer.
While we were waiting for the performance to begin, we relaxed by learning some American children's games with our friends from Imperial School. But then it was time to perform again.
All right. All right.
We had one other performance in Washington, which we will never forget. In some ways, this was the most exciting of all. When Mrs. Reagan, the wife of the President of the United States, had visited Shanghai, she came to see us at the Children's Palace. She invited us to visit her if ever we came to America. At the time, that seemed just like a dream. But here we were in Washington, and Mrs. Reagan invited us to come to the White House and give a performance to some of her guests. Weren't they wonderful?
When I was in, when we were in China, I had the most wonderful opportunity to see these young people perform, and when I learned that they were coming here, I asked them if they would come and perform here at the White House so that you all could see them too, because they are so great, and I know that you'll think so also. I can't wait for you to see them.
亲爱的里根总统夫人，我代表中国上海儿童艺术团全团向您感谢邀请我们来到白宫演出。我们在上海已经见过面了，今天是第2次见面，我们很高兴。现在我代表全体同学向您感谢。
To this famous building where so many ambassadors had come before, the little ambassadors of Shanghai brought their own very special message of goodwill.
How pretty. Isn't that pretty? It's upside down. Well, even upside down it looks pretty.
Wherever they traveled on their American tour, they charmed all who met them, bridging the differences between two great nations with their talent, their enthusiasm, and their love. There was one moment that all who saw them will never forget. At the end of each of the performances, the little ambassadors of Shanghai were joined on stage by the children from imperial schools in Pasadena. Side by side, they sang a song in both English and Chinese that had been specially written for them.
Friends, I mentioned to you earlier that I just took 15 minutes of excerpts from a presentation that runs for a full hour and a half that we plan to play this weekend. I don't usually tell you where we're going to be, but we're going to be on the Sabbath Service television channel. If you want to find out how to tune that in the whole hour and a half this weekend, send me an email. I'll tell you how to tune in for this. Here's a little bit more before we sign off tonight.
I'll never forget my American friends. I hope we will be friends forever.
And friends, that's it for this Tuesday night, May 5, 2015 edition of Nightcast. God willing and the creek don't rise, we'll be back again tomorrow evening, Wednesday night, with the day's current news related to the Bible and prophecy. Until next time, your host, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying so long and good night, friends.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on cogtv.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the cogtv.org video archive.